honestly, as well, you'd say the same thing about Yubi. He's been banned away despite the nerfs. FPX hovering through the jungle, and, you know, Kitty, we didn't get to talk too much about rosters either. That's something else we can kind of hover over when we get into game. But for now, we'll just keep track of these champions starting 13.1, which is the Vi first pick, which, Kitty, in the preseason was a very big jungle pick. That was great for things like the Zeri, right? Some of those AD carries that lacked the more mobility, which seems like a very strong first pick for FPX.
It is indeed a very strong pick for the side of FPX because this Vi pick does have a lot of great synergies with the current meta mid laners, such as the Azir, such as the control mages. And like I said, the Cassiopeia can even come back into the meta because of these item changes. So I'm really looking forward to what the mid jungle has to offer for patch 13.1. But Kalista and Maokai gets locked in straight away.
Yeah, okay, so is that going to be down in the support or is it going up into jungle? This has been a flex as well, right? And Lwandy, someone who plays, I guess, more broader supports, is on the other side. AD carry going into it, and Kalista was still considered one of the weaker ADs in 13.1, but Caitlyn definitely not, as Lwx returns back to his lane-dominating stance. Kitty, last year, this is like all he played back when Dragons got buffed.
Caitlyn is definitely a tier 1 ADC in the current meta pool, but Kalista getting first picked from the side of W is definitely a very niche decision to make, to say the least. But like I said, this Maokai can be flexed to either the jungle, top lane, or support, so it's a very good second choice for WE. But the Lux gets locked in to pair up with the Caitlyn, so this is more like a skill matchup in the bot lane.
Yeah, it really is. Nautilus for the engage might be it as well, and takes away some of that flex potential, I guess, too. As that gets locked in, we know that the Maokai is most likely going up towards jungle for Heng making his debut. Kitty, second ban phase, though, we still don't have a mid laner pick with the bottom lane cemented for both these teams. Walk me through some more of those mages that need to be banned, because you and I were talking about Cassiopeia and even Kassadin being at the top of our list.
Yep, now we actually have to say Kassadin and Cassiopeia out loud because they sound the same. But these mages will definitely be removed. Kerr was an extremely good Ahri player back in 2021 when he was still playing on FunPlus Blaze. So that's a very understandable ban coming out of WE. But I've also heard that Sylas has been a very prominent pick for the two mid laners in this game. So Sylas can also be a champion that can be flexed to jungle now with the 13.1 jungle changes. So that can definitely be a viable option for both teams.
I like the Sylas mention, especially since on WE's side, Shanks is a great Sylas. I feel like it was one of his top champions from the previous split, while for Kerr, as the Ahri was noted a little bit before, excuse me, was definitely into his niche pool. Now, we've got the Fiora ban, Kitty. Xiaolaohu, another great duelist in the top lane. So, as we take away the Fiora, which also was sitting in our nerfs that you guys didn't get to see, I'm wondering if it's just going to be a first pick top side here for Biubiu to get a bit of priority.
Although Fiora did receive a slight nerf coming into 13.1, she's a great answer to the champions like Jax and Jace and Ksante even, which are still very meta. But this Fiora being taken off the map just means that they're open for bruiser top lane matchups.
I love how right now going through those bruises is making the screen lag a little bit. It's like ruining champion select right now. This is the first game, guys, so don't worry about it. They're looking at Ksante on WE's side, but actually the Renekton gets locked in blind against FPX and Xiaolaohu. Right now, there's a lot of options available. Ksante looks like it could be one, and it's just locked in straight away for FPX to deal with, I guess, an easier matchup.
Look, Xiaolaohu said, if you're not picking Ksante, give it to me. And he insta-locks the Ksante. Even though he received a slight damage nerf in this new patch, he is still relatively strong. And with Jaxo also receiving a slight change where the tanks do use it better in the current patch, Ksante shouldn't suffer from it too heavily.
But on the other side, as Akali gets locked in for Kerr, I'm just wondering what Shanks gets a counter pick with. I know a lot of people will be saying things like Kassadin coming through. Cassiopeia maybe not as much, but it's just an Azir. And it's an interesting composition, Kitty. Run me through WEs to kick us off, because I feel like this is a team fighting comp that looks very reminiscent of like season 11 or maybe even like the start of season 12.
W's game plan for this first introduction match will be aggression and going straight in. With Renekton being locked in blind and the Maokai in the jungle, they have a lot of security when it comes to those engaged in team fights. And Kalista Nautilus being very strong as a duo pet for bot lane, they should look to play towards this Kalista because...
We begin. Welcome back to the LPL, and isn't this iconic? 5v5 in the bottom lane with a Nautilus. I sense a dredge line, and it starts us off. Roots us down. Lele ignited, flashes away. He gets welcomed to the league with a how's it going, and only just survives. In the meanwhile, WE get away, but it's ignite down for Lwandy, double summoners for Lele, and I could not be more at home.
What a way to start off the first game of 2023 LPL Spring Split, everyone. 5v5 straight up in the ball lane at 1 minute, and unfortunately, Lele has to burn 2 summoner spells as a result of that, and I'm afraid that these 2 summoners being down, the Maokai is going to be living in that bot lane.
True. I mean, a good point you talked about is that haoye will have to pay attention to Lwx and Lele in this first game with the lane control that they want to ascertain. But for WE, I mean, they're also first into the lane, Kitty. Worth mentioning that both junglers started towards the top side, but Hope is going to have the first shove here to try and get level 2, and Lwandy is on a Nautilus. So I feel like we're going to expect a pretty heavy level 2 from Hope and Lwandy to try and push that lead.
For sure, because of the level 1 results. Oh, another hook!
Already. Yeah, it's a good one as well. Lwandy just doing some damage. Hope following here with the random. Remember, Kitty told you that Lele doesn't have any summoners available, so even though Lwandy burned the ignite, the advantage there for WE is what they're trying to push, as level 2 is what we're going to watch for the time being, and then we can kind of go through the map and talk about comps, but I feel like right now FPX, yeah, they're going to back away, Kitty. Pay the respect here as level 2 is going to be gained by WE first.
Yeah, this map state, definitely both jungles will be pathing towards this bot side, and with Kalista and Nautilus already getting the lane pushed in, you already see how doomed the lane state is with the Lux starting the Relic Shield. This is going to be a very tough matchup for these 2 ranged champions up against a Nautilus and Kalista. Like you said, the Nautilus lands 1 Q and someone might be dead. With Lele having no flash, that very much could happen.
Well, Heng is going for his own invade though, again, towards that bottom side you talked about. Bolt Break is held on by haoye as Shanks has the push in the mid wave and is able to move to these enemy Raptors. And haoye just waiting to try to pull this out and get some AoE damage, but cares at half HP. It's an early game Akali, and it is just a smite wall that, fortunately, haoye secures himself and is able to get out. But Heng is not giving up. I love this. It's his first time at the LPL, and he's asserting dominance over the LDL champion.
Most definitely, and Azir is already getting such a hard push in onto this Akali, where this behavior is allowed by Heng.
He's going to get himself in straight away with a Nature's Grasp, or rather a Bramble Smash. haoye moves to half HP, and it's the burn damage with Hope coming in to rend this one down for an early smite. Now remember guys, in the off-season, 600 smite makes it easier to look for steals and the such. So Heng picks up the red buff and makes FPX kind of scared for their lives in this bottom lane. And already we're seeing WE's adaptation, Kitty, with Hope coming in off of JDG, off of that semi-final roster, with Lwandy from LNG. A very structured bottom lane that's doing really well.
Lwandy?
Is he going to do it?
Is he going to flash?
He's going to flash. Oh, he would.
He's going to do it.
He would.
Oh,
Lwandy! Remember when Lumao was on the bench? Well, the first blood of the LPL 2023 spring comes from that man.
What an excellent roam coming out of Lwandy. He saw that the Akali was relatively low from the Azir poke earlier from the laning phase, and I really respect when the supports do go mid lane for these very unexpected roams. And with the wave pushing in, Hope should be able to survive this dive if they do try to go for it, although this Nautilus is running straight back down, so overall, very good play from Lwandy.
And again, to highlight what you were just talking about with Hope, paying the respect. He wasn't over pushing in that bottom lane, so was just able to catch this massive wave that was shoved in. And with first blood to WE not going to the support but going to Shanks, his lane, Kitty, feels like it's going to get even worse. There's a lost chapter early here against Care, who's still at level 5 and still keeps getting abused in this range versus melee matchup. Lwandy.
Lwandy is being an absolute menace this game, but something that I can really pick up is I love the proactiveness coming out of WE. They're literally egoing off the Vi from her own red buff, and that is all because of a snowball effect where Nautilus and Kalista were really able to prioritize their lane dominance, and with Azir also helping in that aspect, this team is looking very promising so far.
And look, Kitty, again, we questioned the Kalista pick, right? The Nautilus as well, showing it was going to be that Maokai jungle straight off the bat. But so far for WE, that game plan, not just through the burnt summoners, but through the laning phase, has been pretty pristine. There's a small CS lead there for Hope is pushing in, but because of all this lane pressure, Kitty, Lwandy with his Hex Flash is constantly roaming and shadowing Heng, who's invading for the second time.
Very aggressive gameplay coming out of the side of WE, but I do want to highlight something else that is happening on the map. So this Renekton has gone for the call up against Ksante, because as a bruiser, being Renekton, you can't really ever kill the Ksante, so he's just having a truce up in that lane, and all the action is going to be around this mid and bot lane where Dragon is actually spawning.
Yeah, okay, so first Dragon gonna be Chemtech. Ladies and gentlemen, if you missed the off-season, welcome back to Chemtech Dragons. You're not going to become a zombie, but you are going to be dealing out quite a lot more when you're below 50%. So not going to see that first Chemtech soul of the 2023 year, but we are going to see the first Chemtech Dragon going down over to WE with almost about 800 gold lead here in game number 1. So as the Dragon goes down, Infernal comes next, and Heng has so much to clear of his own jungle, Kitty. You can just see he spent so much time towards Raptors. Now he's got a full clear. Left standing while haoye tries to be cheeky in the bottom lane.
This doesn't work.
They're gone. Or does it? Wait. Oh, haoye backs away. What timing for Hope and Lwandy to just walk back in.
FPX is honestly getting desperate for this bot lane because Caitlyn hasn't really touched the plates, and as a Caitlyn and Lux lane, if you're not touching plates, then what can you really do when you are this behind in the early game? However, it's not too far just quite yet, but from the game state so far, this Caitlyn is definitely getting the lower end of the sick.
Yeah, again, you know, you talked about how crucial it is, and we also talked about how skirmish heavy this really could be between WE and FPX in the first game. I want to talk about other elements that we haven't had a chance to because of the crazy way we started, Kitty. You mentioned topside a little bit there. Walk me through a bit how FPX can kind of recover this game. We're looking outside the Caitlyn and Lux box now though, right? Akali's hit level 6, the Ksante 6 as well. I want to know how some of those skirmishes or pick potential come to light for FPX in other sides of the map.
We already see Lwandy rotating to this Herald, where in the current meta, I believe, Herald has been prioritized for most of the teams because just of how much it provides in terms of gold. I already see Lwandy being here first, where Lux as a champion, you can't face check into a Maokai or Nautilus, so in reality, there's no vision being set up for FPX, so this is going to be tough.
Not at all. Xiaolaohu with the ultimate as well. And we'll ask you about those comps again in a moment after we see how this skirmish plays out. Because Shanks still has himself a push through mid, but Lwx has moved up with Hope keeping towards the bottom side. But while this Herald fight's going on, Biubiu just sneaks himself a plate. But it means FPX will be able to finally get their first objective of this game though. However, Hope is going to do the same in the bottom lane. So, Kitty, if we just look at the Herald value, WE innately have been able to pick it up on some of these core individual members of the comp.
I'm wondering if this Vi will just drop it bot lane because of how behind this Caitlyn is from the start of the game. But talking about the overall team comps that we have for FPX, they have relatively good scaling with the Ksante and Caitlyn. And this Caitlyn has so much range on the Kalista, where in the later team fights with the rapid fire coming back in, she won't really be able to be touched by the Kalista. However, Azir being the mid lane on Shanks, he can definitely be answering the Caitlyn, but if Care plays his teamfights correctly and finds a flank onto one of the carries of WE, then the teamfights can be very hard to pull off.
So playing a bit of those angles, I like that as well. That comes back and answers my question perfectly as to how FPX can kind of operate moving into, I guess, later portions of the early game that we're seeing in front of us for now. But this invade's still continuing on. Heng still going deep, but red buff is forced to be reset with the range played through by Lele on his Lux. But then you see as Lwandy doesn't find the play, helps Shanks push up, and then now move as a unit. I mean, So far, Kitty, the first 10 minutes of macro from WE has been, I think, 1,000 times better than last year, because WE are looking like the stronger team in game number 1. The team that went 0-16 last year. As Dominus is going to be popped in the top lane in the meanwhile. Biubiu just forcing out Xiaolaohu, but we know Ksante from solo queue. We know we don't really kill that champion easily.
Never ever. I don't think I've ever seen a Ksante die in my life. So based off statistics, Ksante is broken. But of course, I don't think Haoye has gotten a single red buff this game. And that's just because of the amazing rotations that Nautilus and Azir have been doing throughout that mid-river.
Look at the wards.
And I know, look at the wards. They look amazing. I mean, they are amazing.
They look amazing.
They look amazing. As a support main, this is eye candy to me.
True.
But something I'm really worried about is this Caitlyn and Lux, because they haven't really been able to look for the plays and even just get any plates in general. Where this Lux has started with a Relic Shield and I believe a Kindle Gem, then she is purely there just for the bind, and she won't really provide much in terms of damage.
Well, I mean, we're going to see that in the next fight, right? The lack of damage coming out of Lele, who has actually picked up his final spark. But on the other side, I want to point out that we do have Crown of the Shattered Queen from Shanks, Hope as well with an Immortal Shield Bow. And so those items are going to be crucial towards Dragon, but at least pressure for FPX might start off this little venture. But WE are here to respond. The turret plates go down, but look at the movement there. Dredgeline not getting through the Vault Breaker from haoye. As Lele gets a binding, but the depth charge continues it off, and Nature's Grasp comes through. The Ents go marching in as Hope chattels in on Lwx, gets the rend, and WE turn to the next. A shove, beautiful from Shanks. This WE looks so much better. The Shanks has to flash away because FPX bring it on out. Xiaolaohu pops the ulti, goes into blade form, a mini Aurelia in this top lane for FPX with the flash from Biubiu. Wants to take down Care, but the range is only just out. The Xiaolaohu can't get under the turret in time. It's WE who make it 5 for 2. And just make me think that this team is looking 1,000 times better than last year.
WE is definitely redeeming their previous year's performance with this this team fight going on. Look at the way it was played. So we have the Nautilus focusing down the Lux first of all, but look at the Caitlyn. She gets focused down straight away by the Kalista, and she dies as the main carry. And this buy, with the Caitlyn down, she doesn't have the damage to execute the Kalista fast enough, where the Azir was able to clean her up. And in this entire time, Renekton was missing. However, being a 2v4 is looking very tough to the side of FPX already, and Renekton just comes up and cleans the fights. Honestly, these team fights, WE is looking like another league.
Yeah, it is. I mean, again, it might only be game number 1, it might only be the first game, but just with what we experienced with WE, if anyone's shooting in for the first time, last year, this team that had Beishang in the jungle, that even had Biubiu, Shanks in the same position, we were looking at 80 carries as just pause for a second as Light Binding comes through, Final Spark as well. Vault Breaker not going to follow up. I was waiting on that one. It just wasn't there with similar members, so it's nice to see that Game 1 has really, really good base fundamentals so far. But Kitty, we're going to have to find out if that continues, because Dragon spawned, it's been sitting there for a while. WE are playing off massive item advantages right now. And as Heng pops the ulti in, I think this is going to be trouble. FPX are caught by the 2 as Dredgeline depth charge, 3-man knockup.
Oh, no.
Hope with the rend into the backline. haoye is there. Care at least getting an assassination helps out haoye to get his first kill of the game. But how does Dragon continue on as Biubiu moves down? And it looks like it will be 1-for-1, but the Dragon still in WE's favor.
Overall, still a winning fight for WE, but this Lux has been suffering. As we can tell, this matchup is not going too hot for Lele, but this overall, with the item advantages and Azir, Kalista, and Maokai all picking up their mythic items, they also had a slight advantage in terms of vision because of winning the prior fight from bot lane. And FPX going for that very feisty trade was definitely a desperate play. It was only the second dragon, it wasn't too significant, but they still opted into it and they traded a 1-for-1, but look at how well the Azir is scaling into the late game.
Yeah, again, when a game that we talked a lot about FPX needing to snowball, right? The Akali, the the Caitlyn pick, excuse me, that meant so much to FPX, now only hitting their first items. And yeah, they may be picking up objectives here and there, but that was a solo first turret for Shanks in the bottom lane. He already had the crown of the Shadow Queen with the Hextech alteration, and now he's got a needlessly large rod. Shanks is 3-0 and making this 4,000 gold lead for WE. Looked pretty promising just on him alone. So, Kitty, coming into this mid game, I wanted to ask you, is it third dragon fight that FPX have to play towards? Or is it trying to utilize some of this side lane pressure with the Akali, with Ksante? What's your angle?
Most definitely, the Vi should be playing alongside this Akali because she has the kill threat onto the carries. But with the sides being a Renekton, it might be a bit tough because he does have that extra bit of health from his items. But looking back to this entire top side, they are getting that vision set up where Lux is building, I believe, a Shirelia's or a Moonstone, and she is not tanky enough or doesn't have enough CC to set up these team fights. And yeah, this is looking pretty promising for WE because this Azir is going to scale into an absolute monster unless Care finds those crucial angles.
Again, it's just been so hard to see because with Crown against an Akali, we all know how, I guess, easy it is for Shanks to play more dangerously as he picked up another turret on the top side. But meanwhile, WE engage against the Herald play with one of their own. Lele stuck in place, a Bramble smash and a smash
He
from
burns
Hope
the flash.
as well. The world semi-final AD carry, Kitty. He's doing well as well on his new team.
Terrible debut for Lele, but honestly, props to Lwandy because he has been so active with these team fights in mid lane. Oh, another team fight.
Yeah, but you have an Azir, a dredge line to save out as well. Hope burns his flash, so for haoye, that's still going to be worthwhile here, getting something. But WE still the victors in the end. And, you know, Kitty, you were talking up Lwandy. I could not agree more. Agent 007 on WE's side has just been perfect on this Nautilus.
Absolutely perfect. And I do want to highlight Hope. He had an amazing performance throughout the end of the summer split for 2022 where he went to the semifinals with JDG, and of course him on those carries, he's such an aggressive player, and paired with Lwandy, look at these plays being made in the mid lane. He flashes, commits, and what can this Lux do other than wasting her flash at the very end because there's no damage.
Yep. It's so funny as well. I'm used to seeing a Ksante do that. You know, the same as an ultimate from a Maokai, a Nautilus hook. Like, Ksante makes sure that you never move ever again. You become a couch potato, but it's great to see that the coordination from WE with the CC layering made the same effect. Now, we have a minute 15 till Dragon comes up. It's still a 5k gold lead. We've talked a lot about the Azir, the Kalista, really taking charge of this game. Kitty, we also have to remember that this Gore Drinker Renekton is in a great position as well, almost towards the second item. And Biubiu's hitting those peaks that every Renekton main loves, where they're going to start taking over fights as well.
These team fights will definitely be very interesting to play out, as look at the team comp of WE, right? We have so many champions that love to play front to back with the Azir and the Kalista where she's short range. She can only deal with the people in front. And with the Akali and Ksante and Vi, they want to be diving onto this Azir. So how can FPX really get to the carries of WE without dying instantly?
Well, it's a good question, right? As you said, to get on top of Shanks is going to be a big deal on Hope as well. The Xiaolaohu, that all out is what we'll be looking for, maybe to start it off here and get into the back line. Some of those path makers that we've seen so far haven't really done too much. This Dragon spawns in 5 seconds, but WE, again, controlling the red buff as they have all game. It's been such a beautiful charade watching the first 90 minutes because, as you said, haoye hasn't really experienced his red side of the jungle so far. This Dragon spawns, it looks like even getting into this Dragon side looks like a difficult choice.
Not at all, and we are at Dragon Soul Point. How will Care play this team fight? Because this Azir cannot live for long if they want to grab the dragon.
It's going to depend, as you said. Xiaolaohu needs to get in there, but it starts off with a Nature's Grasp at 4k. But haoye is given the opportunity to 50-50 this one off with Bolt Breaker in, doesn't get the steal, and now Dredge Line in. Spark doesn't do too much. As Xiaolaohu is at half HP and can't use his ultimate. He's too squishy at that point. Shanks builds space yet again from Care, who seems to be the biggest threat of FPX. but no damage is done. WE stay alive as 5, and Dragon's Soul Point is acquired. And Kitty, I mean, they're moving up towards Baron.
They are going to grab the Baron up, but, you know, LWX at least picks up the bot lane tower. That fight, it's just, you have so much front lane coming out of FPX, but this Vi going in, the Ksante going in, nothing's dying. So in the end, the Vi can only tank for so long when you're up against an Azir and a Kalista with 2 items.
Yep.
How long can FPX really go on for?
Oh, an attempt, at least with the final spark from Lele, but Baron goes over. My question exactly, how much longer does FPX have left in them in this game? 2.5 item Kalista on Hope versus LWX, who's only getting towards that rapid fire cannon. Only getting close, I should say. Kitty, replay time though, and this Dragon 50-50
My favorite.
was an attempt.
Yep. So we have a replay of the dragon fight. The Vi goes straight in and gets melted by all the damage from the Azir. And I really like how the Renekton and Maokai is playing this team fight, playing front to back with the Azir, which is exactly what you want for WE. So they played the fight extremely smart, and they were looking out for the carries of Shanks and Hope.
And again, as you said, how do you get on top of them? Shanks saving that Emperor's Divide for care each and every time. And building the space and the way this game's going, we know that it's only going to get harder for Care to do some damage here as Heng goes for his usual red buff invade while they're trying to get onto Lwandy. Vault Breaker turns into Assault and Battery on top of Hope. He ceases and desists, and they've got the pick you were after. A massive shutdown here for FPX as the Nature's Grass comes through and locks down everyone. Biubiu has to flash out, but the health bars are getting low once again on FPX as Care has to disengage from the fight. Xiaolaohu went all out for this one, but now he's dead and out. And you're right. The only one was Hope as Shanks flies through the skies. Doesn't even need a divide. Red buff is helping out WE at this point. And as good as it looked with the shutdown, WE just always seemed to get more.
That was a really good pick coming out of Vi. He spotted that the Kalista was out of position in mid lane, and they committed for that kill. They were... Honestly, FPX is in a very desperate situation where they haven't picked up enough gold to get them item spikes, and with dragon spawning in 2 minutes, which is a mountain dragon up for a Renekton and Maokai Nautilus, without those core items, it's not genuinely nothing is going to fall down. But looking at the replay, so really nice combo coming out of haoye here where he focuses down Hope straight away, Kara follows up extremely well, and the Kalista dies instantly. Renekton TP slightly late, but this Renekton is so tanky. Look at his health. He flashes away, but everyone else on the enemy team is already 1 HP. Azir free DPSing in the background. Ksante doesn't do enough damage to deal with the Azir because of his gold lead, and just teamfight is just looking like an Azir's playground.
It really is 5-0-1. It's been a Shanks game, focused through and through so far, but I have to give credit to Heng as well. We've gone through this roster, Kitty, for game 1, and we talked about the WE members that have been highlights. I think this Maokai, when his debut game, is coming onto a team that was pretty desperate last split. You know, again, 0-16 has to be highlighted once more. Heng has played such a great game with the rest of WE's bot lane, with Lwandy especially, and the jungle support synergy has been enabling the takeover of haoye's red side, the constant stealing away of camps. And they're just pain in the ass, I should say, of this Maokai jungle.
Maokai jungle, yes. I mean, to be fair, the Maokai was quite literally living in Vi's bot side jungle, so haoye was really just taking it up. But Lele and the LWX not being able to find that lead in the early game, and this is a result of it.
They're not doing too much damage, but at least Heng goes down in the end. They catch him out once again on that side of the jungle we talked about. Haoye goes down to half HP, but it's 30 seconds before Dragon, and Heng is got a 30-second death timer, Kitty. Maybe for FPX, that's something to note.
The engage?
However, Dredge line comes through, and Ksante dying. A very foreign experience that evens up to 4 versus 4.
Definitely most I've seen a Ksante die in a game so far in patch 13.1. But I need to highlight that this Azir has the Shattered Crown plus the stopwatch available for this soul fight. And Ksante being down, this dragon fight is looking very doomed, and they're not even going to take it in the end. But Mountain Soul will be online for WE eventually. And with this Akali not being able to find those flanks, and she's been quite invisible throughout these team fights as well. So I'm really wondering, how will they get their hands onto the carries?
Well, not this way, that's for sure. I mean, Care's just taken down 1/4 of his HP. Haoye gets hit by saplings. The AP build is just disgusting, and still 1 or 2 saplings at least from Heng, and Haoye goes down to half. Now, he's just finished Radiant Virtue Kitty. Like, he's got a bit of health to work with. It shouldn't really do that much, but I guess it does.
A bit of health is not enough health, to say the least. But I do want to highlight the Caitlyn build from Lwx. So he's opted into the Gale Force and RFC, currently building into an IE, but this build significantly lacks damage until you hit that third item. And looking at the enemy team of Renekton and Maokai, the Mountain Soul, in reality, only the Akali will be doing the damage in these team fights.
That's a good point. We're looking for that pen with shielding, which, you know, we get out of the Shadow Flame, right? Max penetration automatically applied. But again, can Care get anywhere near them? It's going to be the biggest question. As Baron is also up in 20 seconds, Kitty, I want to avert our eyes to that, because right now WE have the shove towards top, have the shove in mid. They've got Biubiu dealing with bot, but also with a teleport available. With so much deep vision here, how do you approach Baron as FPX, or is it just a case of not?
So Lele really needs the Vi or the Ksante to walk her into this topside jungle, just because of so much vision being implemented already previously by Lwandy. But Lux ult gets burned here to check for some vision. Care really needs to look for those angles where he's able to become a menace in these team fights, because Caitlyn traps haven't been set up and Caitlyn is late to the fight.
Very, very late, as Haoye is now zoned out from the fight completely. Biubiu moves into Xiaolaohu once again, and Baron is just gone. As simple as that for WE, who now lead by 10,000 gold in the first game of the split. 6-0 on Shanks, as FPX might not be done with this. They're looking for this Azir, but he's level 16. Can they get through the crown? It's held for a while, but he's got back into the team, goes golden. And that's an AP Maokai. At least Shanks should be dying here. He should be dying here. But he takes so long to do so. As Haoye running for his life. They thought 2 versus 1 would be enough, as Hope sends forward with the Fate's Call. The depth charge helps out. Dredgeline is out of range, and Haoye is now on the chase out of there. They're going to leave him alone, but it's all that for Shanks that just turns pear-shaped.
I respect FPX for finally pulling the trigger and engaging onto the side lane Azir. Honestly, could have been happening a lot earlier in the game and could have maybe averted from this current game state, but Caitlyn has finally picked up her third item, and this will be a massive difference in terms of the damage, and especially with these team fights coming in. So we get a replay of this. The Azir was walking on a ward, unfortunately, and the Vi instantly ults. And with 2 people with so much mobility, they are just jumping in and out of that wall. But Maokai tries to salvage this situation. Honestly, Shanks nearly lived, but Vi picks up that bounty and the $1,000 gold on a tank.
Yeah. So, not ideal when we're talking up our Care and Lwx. Kind of need to be the people with damage. I will say that, look, the engage from Haoye means he probably won't die as quickly this time. Kitty, I need to also talk about that third item since we are on the subject, because if we are looking for damage, Lwx at least has it now. Infinity Edge has been completed, so for FPX, despite being down 9,000 gold, there is a lot of burst that we can kind of expect if they're able to get another pick off again.
This is definitely the time for Lwx to shine in these team fights. He's finally online with his IE, and he has the range to deal with this Azir, but it really depends on how the Renekton plays these team fights, because if you have a Renekton and Maokai on the Caitlyn's face, then she can't really DPS, and with the Akali proving that she's not as strong as we would have liked her to be, this Caitlyn is the main focal point for these team fights if FPX wants to win.
I mean, if FPX are going to ever fight again, because they're being assaulted on so many different fronts. They left Care in the side lane bot side to push into that inner turret and try and get some bounty gold, but I mean, WE assaulting. There is a TP though. You look at Care TPing so far behind enemy lines, but Xiaolaohu's already dead. Biubiu's dying. Care has made the ultimate TP, but the game might just be over before he gets involved. Oh, Care had a great thought process, but unfortunately, it just wasn't it, as he now gets pierced by Shanks. WE are walking this into the base. The opening game of the LPL 2023 spring is coming to a close. And it's WE who went winless in series last year, who've opened us up with a banger and are looking so much more promising here to round us out with a domination over FPX.
What an amazing debut game for the new WE roster. Honestly, so much promising moments from this team where Shanks was able to shine and Hope was able to shine once again, and all the facilitating coming from the jungle and support, especially Lwandy being proactive. Huge respects to the team, and my eyes are definitely open for them.
Yeah, Lwandy again, I think might be a cheeky hidden MVP of that. Some beautiful engages, as you were saying. Really set up the early game with Heng. I think even though Shanks was the flashy player of that game, Kitty, it was definitely the KDA player stepping up quite big. But I think the biggest thing about that first game was that for WE, what they lacked so much last year was that cohesion in, I wouldn't say early game, maybe it's mid-game, like their progression, how they go when side lanes are a little bit longer, going into the mid-game and like how they assault on the third or the fourth neutral objective. It wasn't really a problem there. And it was pretty clean in how they progressed in each part of the game.
Honestly, the entire game was played pretty well from the side of WE, where they had a very fast tempo early game with the Nautilus and Kalista coming in, and the Maokai knew that and really used this advantage to take all the red buffs from the Vi, and this Vi being one buff down, in reality, in a 3v3 in bowling with the Lux having no flash, then they don't really win unless they pull off some crazy mechanical play. The Caitlyn and Lux was very silent that game.
Yeah, again, it was just the lane that needed to get ahead. We've seen it so many times, not only just in the LPL, but globally. A lane that relied on, I guess, that 5v5 not being disastrous for Lola. Like, Kitty, we opened the LPL, and 30 seconds into the game, it's a 5v5 in the bottom lane. I don't know if they just hand shook and were like, yeah, we're going to do this, but I think it's a perfect way to open the split.
It was the perfect way to introduce me to the entire LPL league in general. It's definitely a very interesting one, to say the least. But let's just say Lux as a blind champion with the Caitlyn paired up in that bot lane, we saw how it was punished, and maybe we've seen something more from just Caitlyn and Lux dominating the meta.
I mean, we saw a Kalista locked in as a response, right? Not even that. I think we got a Kalista blind, actually. Picked up by our semi-final, world semi-final AD carry and Hope, who's now only just joined WE. So it's interesting to me that it was such a confident pick from, confident AD carry, but still something that we didn't expect to see in 13.1. But nevertheless, it was a clean counter in the bottom side, or at least a clean counter overall, I should say. Not holistically in the lane. But the damage from Shanks,